Hi, I'm John Molesky, host of Dialogue. We're on the set where we just concluded a taping for an upcoming program on Pakistan, and we bill it as one of the world's most dangerous places. Is that hyperbole, Michael?
Well, I mean, it is...
Tribal regions, I should say specifically, we're talking about.
I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but I think in terms of militancy and deaths and violence, it probably has to rank up there, even though one could argue that the figures have dropped a bit in the last year or so.
So, some positive trends?
Perhaps.
Or a statistical anomaly, we can't tell you.
Yeah, it's too early to tell, and you never know in Pakistan. It's so volatile, things could change in a hurry.
Akbar, you just this week visited the State Department at their invitation to brief them. I'm curious about where their head is as a group. What are they thinking about? Are they asking the right questions? Are they focused on the right things?
John, just the very fact that they invited me to talk to them was significant, because I talk as a historian, as a former administrator of the tribal areas in Pakistan, and of course the fact that we are all concerned here in America and the people of Pakistan and Afghanistan about the future of those areas. And it has rightly been called, President Obama called it the most dangerous place on earth. Waziristan, the heart of the tribal areas, it was traditionally one of the most inaccessible regions in the entire world. It is considered that. And one of the most difficult. This is the place where an entire British regiment just evaporated, disappeared as the Masouds ambushed them. There were more troops, British troops in this place than the rest of the Indian subcontinent in the 1920s and 30s. It is a very difficult area because of the terrain and the tribes. And we need to, in Washington, understand that region, because it is the ground zero of the war on terror. And in order to bring some sanity to the situation on the ground, and therefore allow us in the United States to start the troop drawdown and begin to restore our own sense of balance in dealing with these international issues.
You know, in our larger discussion, we laid out some of the problems from your perspective. We laid out some potential solutions or areas that certainly could help. One thing we didn't talk about was what is the sense of urgency? How are we talking about a situation that is somewhat chronic but could become more acute? And how much time do we have to get this right? I think I've seen some pieces from you, Akbar, where you've suggested that you've tried to create this sense of urgency, that this can't just go on like this forever, that something bad can happen if we don't ensure that something good happens. What are your senses of the timelines? What are we working with here before we're talking about something catastrophic?
No, I agree that the clock is definitely ticking. If you look at trends in Pakistan, not just in the tribal areas, but all over, in terms of the economic situation, which is just falling apart and continues to get worse, the energy shortages, the unhappiness, the lack of education, the health crises, and the fact that the security problems aren't disappearing or anything. So I know it's hard to quantify it in terms of you know, when the clock stops.
I don't want to be alarmist. I'm just trying to give it some sort of, give people a sense of what we're talking about.
I think after, assuming U.S. troops pull out of Afghanistan in 2014, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in Pakistan then.
A key moment.
Yeah.
What's your thought, Akbar? How much time do we have?
I think I agree with Michael. The clock is ticking, and if you add up what's happening in Pakistan, John, you'll see that the gap between the rich and the poor has never been wider. The scarcity of food, electricity, health facilities, jobs, these are really affecting people, and you're reaching a stage where I'm seeing a lot of the breakdown of law and order, actually a slow motion social revolution taking place. And the elite is helpless. They have no idea how to deal with this. So you have a simmering civil war situation in Balochistan. You have the tribal areas in turmoil, a weak government which is seen as corrupt and incompetent by the people. And you really have a crisis. This cannot carry on. It could result in all kinds of terrible things. And again, you go back to the ordinary people of Pakistan. Their suffering doesn't end. And when
this is a nuclear power we're talking about.
It is a nuclear power. It's a critical part of geopolitical situation in the world. And when you have a nation that large, which is also nuclear, and you push it to the point of despair, anything can happen in terms of breakdown, revolution, change of direction, political direction. That region, as you know, is in turmoil. Iran wanting its nuclear power, all sorts of reports about strikes on Iran. And if that happens, it immediately affects Pakistan. What happens in Afghanistan affects Pakistan, and vice versa. What happens in India and in the northern part of India affects Pakistan. So it is a critical area, and it needs to and deserves to be encouraged to become stable and calm over the next few years, because Pakistanis are hardworking, they are very bright people, and they're capable of transforming that region. This is the area, John, at one stage, which was called the breadbasket of Asia. You know, the heart of Pakistan is the Punjab. This is what was supposed to have fed all of Asia. It was so prosperous. The Punjabi farmers, legendary. Now that has been reduced today to a country which is on the verge of starvation. I hear stories I cannot imagine as a former administrator of Pakistani families actually starving. Fathers throwing themselves before oncoming railway trains simply because they want to kill themselves, and their kids, they can't feed them anymore.
Selling their children.
Or selling. Now this is unheard of, this unprecedented. So really, on one level, the human level, Washington needs to respond. On a strictly geopolitical level, it needs to respond because this is a key ally. Whether you like it or not, we are stuck in that sense with each other. And then finally, because of the American vision, America stands for something, and Pakistanis see Americans as standing for something, and that also causes a kind of frustration. Like these young kids from the tribal areas, they would come to America and they would love America. But they've also heard so many negative things. They burn Qurans, they torture prisoners and so on. And that's creating a conflict both there and here in America. That needs to be resolved by Americans.
Gentlemen, Akbar Ahmed, American University, and Michael Kugelman from the Asia program here at the Wilson Center, thank you. And if you'd like to hear more from our guests, visit us on the web at wilsoncenter.org. And if you look at the upper right-hand part of the screen, you'll see a tab for TV and radio. Click that. You can find your way to the complete 30-minute dialogue program with our guests. Thanks.